Hello, everyone. Santa here, and I just discovered I had my microphone off, so here's take two of the first minute. So it's April, obviously, time for the Life and Channel update. There's a lot happened this month, and the first thing you'll note is that I started streaming again, and it'd been last in January, like it'd been 3 months to the day, for how we account from. I have this whole thing about how like maybe we should have 13 months of 4 weeks exactly each and have the extra day or two if it's a leap year. Just New Year's Day is not a day of any week or month. It's just its own thing, and then leap day can happen afterwards if we want. Anyway, calendars aside and mathematics and all of that. It'd been way too long, so I'm glad to have finally done some streaming again. The anniversary event for Guild Wars 1 kind of gave me some strong incentive. But wow, the stream drop issue is even worse than it had been before. I don't know why it's worse. I'm pretty sure it's because I've been connected wirelessly, because the wire connection that I'd previously had had stopped working, probably because the cable was old and worn out and had been strung. So my room, and I explained this in the VODs, but for those who maybe don't watch them, my room and the room the router are in are not the same room. So we had to string a cable, and what we had previously done is string a cable between my room through the hallway and into the room where the router is and across the floor there. So it probably got a lot of like wear from people walking on it over time, particularly in the room. Like it was in the side of the hallway, so it wasn't a problem there, but it's going across the floor to where the router was. So, and again, it was an older cable, so it probably just finally gave out. But I think that's what the cause is. From what I've been able to do investigation-wise, I'm pretty sure that the problem, because the thing is, it's losing connection. It's not just dropping a bunch of frames. It's dropping frames as it's losing connection, or so there's all these issues in that regard. So the wireless connection was working for just like regular internet usage. It's not a problem for that, but I'm pretty sure it can't handle the throughput of data when streaming. So I want to get wired back in, and it's something where I hadn't been sure how serious of a problem it would be, and then boy, it was a serious problem on the 18th. I downloaded like all 7 parts and compiled them together into one video because I thought it was just too ridiculous. So that one's a little choppy in some spots where I have to fade between drops. I did local recordings for the last 2 streams, so they hopefully turned out well. I don't tend to go back and rewatch them necessarily. But hopefully, at bare minimum, it would avoid the stream drop, and hopefully it avoided any frame drop issues as well, because the problem's not on my computer's end. This computer is plenty powerful enough to handle some Guild Wars 1 plus recording. So anyway, I do want to do more streaming. I want to stream more Guild Wars 1 in particular. I don't know. It'd be nice by the time next anniversary comes around to have all of the characters on that account actually properly established. So if I want to get a bunch of those proofs, I'm able to do so in a reasonable way. I think the event's still going on. Should be, right? I might do more streaming of it this coming week at the time of recording. But we did get a new cable. There's a bit of logistics of figuring out how we want to get it installed and making sure it's, because my dad would be the one who'd be handling a lot of that, making sure it's enough on his radar that's happening. So he was talking about wanting to put it like through the walls or through the ceiling or something, having some way of getting it through that wasn't laying it through the hallway and across the floor and through the hallway again. So we need to get on that. I've been away this past weekend on a church retreat. It was good. We got matching beanies, dukes, whatever you want to call them. I appreciate that my church does merch like that. But anyway, I want to get wired in for future streams. I don't like taking local recordings. It takes up a bunch of space, and I have to worry about other stuff with it. That it's not a huge issue, but it's something that I don't want to have as a long-term solution. The other streaming thing that I would like to do is something that I've been doing on my own is an Elden Ring randomizer that I've been playing through and having a lot of fun with that. And being very glad I found the Sacred Relic Sword super early so I could take care of some nasty mobs of enemies more easily or clear out a bunch of weaker enemies from stronger ones. But I think it would be a lot of fun to stream an Elden Ring randomizer at some point in time. But I don't want to do that before having a wired connection. And Guild Wars 1 is still kind of a priority in that regard. But I have been having a lot of fun playing that randomizer as we eagerly anticipate the DLC coming out in a few months. Yeah, looking forward to that. But that's not this month. That's June. So other things this month, aside from finally doing some streaming again, include I've been working on an article about past spiritual abuse and the resulting trauma that I experienced. It's sometimes what I find when I'm writing these things, and this is certainly where I'm at right now, is I hit a point where I kind of need to figure out what the next thing is that I need to write, but I haven't actually figured that out yet. So it takes some time for me to, like, I set stuff up and then I'm like, oh, okay, now I need to get past this step, be able to do the next part. So that's kind of where things are at right now, and I think I'm far enough past that. I just need to figure out how to put things together. So that's something that's been going on. I've also, on the game making front, I realized that I need more experience for the design that and everything that I was working on. And so to kind of back up a little bit, just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview. The game I was working on, there was some key design things that I really liked. So a few of those key ideas in no particular order other than this is how I'm figuring out how to articulate them. One was I really liked the idea of making food and rest really important in the context of the game. So healing was going to be fairly weak and only come from healing items. So you need, but like you'd have a large HP pool. So it's more like you get worn down over time and then you need to rest in like an inn or camping or whatever to restore HP. In terms of like actually really restoring amounts of HP. So that was going to be part of it. But another aspect of that is your maximum stamina, which would be used to perform actions, would be based on like, have you eaten? So food would be really important for like having maximum stamina. It's like I want these mechanics to feel actually relevant, right? Is sort of the idea. So often in games, food feels like it doesn't matter or it's just a healing item or something. So I want to try to do something with it. Where it felt like it mattered, so having it affect the stamina that you use for moves. And just this idea of attrition that I was talking about with HP, I also wanted it to apply to MP, to where that is slowly ticking down. So it basically represents your mental exhaustion, you could say. So most actions would require some amount of MP to use, but not a whole lot, but you'd have a fairly static maximum. And that would get worn down, and basically the only way to restore that would be by resting, would be by sleeping or taking a nap or whatever. My lighting really feels like it's blowing out my forehead right now, but what you gonna do? Certainly not figure out how to have a better lighting setup. It's too pretty outside. So anyway, I've been like that's one aspect of the design. I also liked the idea that there'd be different character classes that would then have basically 3 attribute lines of, so each attribute line would have around half a dozen skills, 5 to 7 skills or so associated with it. So you would have like pyromancy, and a few classes would use pyromancy. In those classes, you could slot in pyromancy skills. So I wanted to limit the total number of skills that you had active at any given time. That's something that I think can become a bit onerous, is trying to figure out what skills you actually want to use. It's a problem actually that I've noticed with the Elden Ring random, or like playing Elden Ring in general, is like there's a bunch of really useful consumables, but it's clunky to use consumables in that game a little bit because you have to kind of like cycle to get to them, and the pouch certainly helps, but then I want quick access things there like Torrent's Whistle and things like that. So the summons that I might use in select areas, I probably shouldn't be putting them there, but it's kind of where I put them. Same with the lantern. I could probably develop better habits that make consumables a little bit easier to use, because there are a lot of really good consumables in Elden Ring, but they're clunky enough to use that I don't tend to. And what I found in previous RPG Maker MV projects is that once you get like above a number of skills beyond what fits on a page where you have to start scrolling, it's really, really easy to not remember what skills you have and not use them. So I want to limit that to things that feel impactful and meaningful. So anyway, there's a lot of things I was doing that way with the design of the combat and everything as well. Trying out a combat formula that has an armor system that is inspired by progressive taxes. So if you don't know how that works, progressive taxes are basically like the first X money you make isn't taxed at all, and then X plus Y is taxed at, say, 10%. And then once you get like past the Y tier, any money you make there is taxed at that percent. So it has an increasing curve of how, I want the curve to go that way, but whatever. It doesn't matter. You get the idea. Hopefully. It increases the amount that you're being taxed as it goes up. And I wanted to apply this to armor, where the higher your armor was, that would like take damage off, and it's a complicated formula, so there's a whole way in which it mitigates damage, and I plotted all of this stuff out in a spreadsheet beforehand so I could do all of the math and everything. But it's an interesting idea that basically says like the higher your armor, the more you're able to kind of like reduce damage, but it kind of reduces it in a kind of an invert progressive tax system. So if you take that idea and you reverse it, you're basically like pushing the tiers up. So you take off more from the bottom, so the higher damage it's able to go through those higher tiers. It's semi similar to actually how a lot of the Souls damage formulas work conceptually, in that there's different things that adjust how much, like basically the more damage you do, the more you're able to get damage through functionally, which is why lower amounts of typed damage in like Elden Ring or Dark Souls are generally kind of bad. So like your greases or your resins or whatever, your weapon buffs that aren't skill based, that add a larger amount based on your skill, your magic modifier, but that are a smaller set amount, tend to not be very good beyond fairly early stages of the game, just because they get mitigated out so quickly. There's a whole discussion point there. It's a damage formula that I think is interesting to experiment with, to see sort of what the consequences of it are, but is not something that I want to do necessarily in any project where damage is functionally split up into multiple packets. Like there's a lot of excuse me. There's a lot of things that kind of affect how you want damage to be allocated out. So damage formulas have a lot of impact on things. And then there's also a lot of interesting character things and world building that I was liking also with this project. But I basically was like, wait, the things that I'm trying to do here, I don't feel like I have the experience, the skills built up yet to really be able to tackle. And like one of the big things that I would need to do with that is to figure out like what the players kind of got going on and things. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff that I basically felt like I need to step back, do something smaller, do something with more discrete focuses, and basically be like, okay, this game is about this concept. Everything else is kind of like muted. It's not a heavy focus. So what I want to do is I want to focus on something that's very narratively focused. It's very character focused, where it is smaller in scope, smaller in design overall, and I can just do something very simply where I can not get caught up in some of the things that catch me up, because that becomes a problem. And so like what I mean there, for example, is I prefer not have, like, if the player wipes, I prefer them to go back to some sort of respawn point, but that to me, that has huge lore implications, so I have to kind of work around, okay, why is this happening, and et cetera. And so it's like, okay, I might prefer that, but let's not do that in this one because I always have to accommodate it for it in the lore. By the way, if you're seeing things, I've got these lights over here, if anybody's wondering. I don't know why that came into my head just now. But anyway, so I'm wanting to focus on something that's much narrower in scope mechanically, so that way I can focus in a fairly like specific way upon a few narrative things. And this is going mechanically and in lore, in terms of lore, because I tend to want to create really robust lore that's the character of the world is a really important one to me. I love J.R.R. Tolkien's work with Arda, which Middle Earth is a section of. The planet is Arda, and then Middle Earth is like a continent, as I understand it. So when I happen to cook, my sister reads the Silmarillion to me. It's a great setup, but we've been kind of going through that, so I'm getting into the deep lore aspects of all of that, and people usually abbreviate to Middle Earth. Anyway, that's kind of going off the rails a little bit. But so that lore is really important to me, but it also becomes a hindrance because like working with that and through that is a lot, especially when you don't have a lot of custom art assets to accommodate it. So I'm trying to focus on things in a different way. So hopefully that works out. It's something that I started this month, is going through that process and trying to work my way through all of that. So a couple of other things that come to mind from this month. One of the big ones is I installed an extension for Google Chrome, although I imagine other browsers have this as well, that blocks YouTube recommendations. So like when a video ends, it's just a black screen. There's no recommendations on the side. I did this because I've probably talked about this before, but I want to watch some YouTube, but I don't want to watch as much as I've often found myself watching. I have completionist tendencies, so if I open up videos, I feel like I need to finish all the videos I've opened up, which is that's a problem. It's a challenge. Thankfully, I'm not into shorts because endless scrolling could also be a huge problem. But what I was realizing is that recommendations keep catching my attention and expanding the number of videos that I'm watching way beyond. Like if I just stick to my subscription feed, it's fine, more or less. It's more or less fine. Sometimes a bunch of videos come out and it's like, oh, that was a huge. The people who release like a video every 2 weeks released one at the same time as the people who release a video a week is the same time as the people who release a video daily. And it's just like, oh, a bunch of things just stacked up. But it's fine if I just stick to my subscription feed, but I was really bad at sticking to my subscription feed because, wouldn't you know it, these algorithms are designed to keep us on the platform so YouTube can keep serving us ads, and YouTube creators, such as this guy right here, other people make better thumbnails than me probably, but people make thumbnails and interesting titles that catch my attention, and I'm like, I kind of want to see what that is, or I was like, oh, I know I enjoy this, and so I'm going off to watch it. It's not something I want to subscribe to, but the long story long, I was realizing that YouTube recommendations is where I really would get sucked into watching more YouTube than I want. And one of the things then that I'm like, okay, if I can cut this out with an extension, it should help. And lo and behold, it helps a lot. And like what I want to do is I want to be spending more time playing video games. Even if it's good old familiar standbys like Elden Ring, except randomizer makes it not as familiar, which is great in its own way. But like I want to be spending more time on some of those things than on watching YouTube. But I want to spend some time watching YouTube, like I said. So that's where I had the problem. Similarly, like quite some time back, I had installed an extension to Twitter to hide trending, and that makes that website significantly more palatable. Although it does create this odd effect where you see several people tweeting about an event, but not in any sort of way that actually explains the event. So you're seeing buzz about something, but you don't know what that something is. So it creates this weird context problem where you're like, what's going on that everybody is saying these things? I don't. Anyway, that can be kind of an interesting experience. But yeah, so I feel like that extension has helped a lot. And it's been a positive development, a good direction for things to go for me. Um, and the other things that are on my mind, the Magic Set Outlaws of Thunder Junction came out this month. So the LGS that I go to has started uh, doing stuff with that. So at this point, I've just done the pre-release and one draft. So far, I'm not wild about the flavor, and in particular, it feels a bit like an unset where everybody's in their cowboy cosplay and is coming out to, or the Wild West cosplay, I guess, and is coming out to do this. And a lot of it was all of the legendary characters, familiar legendary faces, legendary creature faces showing up. That doesn't show up as much in booster packs, though. I feel like as a booster product, it feels better flavor wise than just looking through the set list. Visual spoiler, whatever you want to call it. Spoiler is a really weird term for it. Visual. I don't know. It's a. I think they've just embraced the fact that people call them spoilers, but they're not. It's the marketing previews. I don't know. Anyway, it really the balance of things felt a bit different. But so far, from a gameplay standpoint, I've enjoyed it pretty well. Plot is an interesting space between Suspend and Foretell. It feels like a baby of those two. And Spree, I appreciate sort of the flexibility that offers. I mean, it's just another variation on Escalate and Kicker and stuff, but it's a reasonable variation on them, I feel. And the crime means that various effects suddenly gain different value in a way that I have enjoyed as well. But it's also because it's targeting your opponent's stuff is such a common Magic action. It's actually really easy to find other cards throughout the. I mean, through the history of Magic is full of cards that allow you to be considered of having committed a crime in Magic parlance. So I appreciate how, as an AB mechanic, it's extremely open-ended and extremely easy to trigger, which is why they have them quite limited in terms of what they do. But I've found that to be fairly enjoyable so far. But we'll see how I feel about things as things mature. It definitely feels very pushed in terms of power level. I don't know if that's a play booster thing, because I think that they've had some adjustment to the new play booster style, and I'm not sure how Murders at Karlov Manor adapted to that or not. I personally quite enjoyed Murders at Karlov Manor. That appears to be the minority position from the online buzz that I've seen, but who knows what the actual buzz is from people who aren't hanging out on the internets talking about things. So, is there anything else that I want to say from this month? There's probably allergies. Yes, I should talk about health briefly. So allergy season has ended, at least for me. The alder blossoms are no longer attempting to suffocate me, which is great. The friend that I went to the retreat with was saying that maybe things started so early we might have a second bloom. I certainly hope not. And I seem to have successfully not caught another cold. I'm not 100%, but I'm like 95+% better in terms of all that. So I still have the occasional like coughing going on and things like that, but it's probably like 98% better, quite frankly. I'm most of the way better. I don't feel like I feel like there might be a few niggling, like still got a little bit too much mucus still lingering in the old lungs. Still sometimes have a buildup of stuff that I need to dislodge with a good old sort of thing. But most of it has alleviated, which I'm very thankful for. It has been a very long stretch. So I am really glad to have that sort of cleared up. So otherwise, I don't know. Things feel like they're on a positive direction. Good positive trajectory for the most part. So I think that's going to wrap things up for this month. Hope you all are doing well. Hope you're having a good time out there. You're staying healthy. The allergies aren't too bad for you if you are suffering from them. enjoy some lights. And until next month, take care, everyone. Goodbye.